I was looking for something with my 141 students because we've started the integumentary system, which is our skin. And like I was saying earlier, I think the majority of what we think about when we think about blood, all right, is when we think about the breach and blood is showing up. Okay, and that is important, okay, because if we breach this integumentary system, we want to close it up, all right. So now we're at the point, which it's going to give some info about the integumentary system, but I don't think that's a bad thing, okay. But it's a very short video, it's not very long, and it is just a really cool video with some cool visuals that we can use as we talk about it. It does have sound. It's just pictures at first.
The skin, nails, and hair of the integumentary system provide a barrier between the environment and tissues and organs within the body. The skin is the largest organ in the body. It absorbs nutrients, regulates internal body temperature, and eliminates waste. The epidermis is the outermost layer of skin that provides a barrier between the body and the surrounding environment. The dermis is the middle layer of
Y'all
skin.
know the stuff
Sensory
hitting the
nerve
skin?
receptors in the dermis respond to touch and pass signals to nerves of the peripheral nervous system. Sweat glands reduce body temperature by releasing sweat. Sebaceous glands produce an oily substance that lubricates skin and provides protection from bacteria. Blood and lymphatic vessels in the dermis supply the skin. The hypodermis is the deepest, fatty layer of skin tissue. It is in contact with the muscles underneath it. Soft tissue organs in the body repair injury through a multi-step process that begins as platelets from torn vessels work to form a mesh-like clot that prevents blood loss. Inflammation in the area occurs as tissue repair begins in a damaged area. Mast cells release histamine that dilates blood vessels and increases blood flow to the repair site. White blood cells, called neutrophils, and macrophages work to consume bacteria and remove damaged tissue and debris. As bacteria and dead cells are removed, the proliferative phase of wound healing begins. Fibroblasts build new tissue by secreting collagen that takes the shape of the original tissue. During remodeling, the final phase of wound healing, the tissue created by the fibroblasts matures and regains its normal function.
All right, so what I was trying to get you guys to note, all right, even though it kind of gave a little bit about the integumentary system, couple of things that I wanted you to pay attention to. They're simply trying to show a breach, okay, in our integumentary system because that is our first line of defense, okay? And did you notice all the little bacteria and viruses and stuff that they showed trying to hit this epidermis, okay? So they're now showing the breach. Note, they're trying to give us an idea of how that breach affected a blood vessel. Okay, did everybody pick up on that? All right, so in looking at that, all right, they're trying to give us an idea about the break in the blood vessel.
Soft tissue organs in the body repair injury through a multi-step process.
They're trying to show this vessel and materials that are moving through it, okay, i.e. red blood cells, platelets, white blood cells, okay, but I now have a breach into that blood vessel, all right. but at the same time, it is going to have the materials needed for repair. Okay?
That begins as platelets from torn vessels work to form a mesh-like.
So she's letting us see that platelets are going to work to form a mesh. And she's also showing that we are trapping red blood cells in this mesh formed by a platelet. So it is going to be platelets that are going to contain the factors for clotting. All right, and it leads to forming this mesh-like arrangement.
Clot that prevents blood loss. Inflammation in the area occurs as tissue repair begins in
Inflammation occurs. All right, inflammation is the process where the temperature is increasing at that point, and it is a way for chemicals to be released. All right, because when this process gets started, some of the process is positive feedback, but we want it to be under control. All right, so it may be positive at first, but then the cycle breaks. Okay, if the cycle doesn't break, this is where bleeding would continue to occur and not stop. Okay.
damaged area. Mast cells release histamine that
Mast cells, which are found very abundant along a blood vessel. Okay, and then they show the macrophage.
and increases blood flow to the repair site. White blood cells called.
Did you see how they showed it moving through the blood vessel wall? Okay, that is what I mean when I said earlier about these cells get to leave circulation and move into the tissues, this connective tissue, and wander around.
Neutrophils and macrophages work to consume bacteria and
Macrophage.
remove damaged tissue and debris. As bacteria and dead cells are removed, the proliferative phase of wound healing begins.
Fibroblasts. Remember, we cannot have the fibers traveling in the blood, but we do have a fibroblast that will be available to give rise to fibers needed for healing. Okay?
For new tissue by secreting collagen that takes the shape
Note they're
of the
using
original
collagen.
tissue. During remodeling, the final phase of wound healing, the tissue created by the fibroblasts matures and regains its normal function.
I just think that's a cool video representing how, because it shows the white blood cells rushing in, it's showing the platelets, it's showing the red blood cells, it's showing the formation of the clot, it's showing formation of the use of those fibers, because anytime we have the breach, okay, the breach has to be cured, it has to be fixed, all right? If not, the chance of bleeding out plus everything that's going to be able to invade, okay, which is not a good thing. So our platelets help with the control of bleeding. This is a process termed hemostasis. Anytime that you hear hemostasis, it means the cessation of bleeding, the stopping of bleeding. This is extremely important to homeostasis. Okay? It is important whether the breach is to the outside environment or it occurred internally. We need to stop the bleeding. If you don't stop bleeding, all right, and if somebody like has a blood disorder or something like that, if you don't stop bleeding, it results in positive feedback And basically you end up affecting blood pressure, you affect the ability of the blood to keep its volume, and death ensues. All right? So, stopping bleeding. Platelets are very important because they are these little cell fragments from something called a megakaryocyte. It's this huge structure that simply sits in, you guys remember spongy bone, the part that with bone marrow? And spongy for a reason, because it looks like a sponge, and it's just sitting over here in part of the sponge. And we've got the blood flow going by, and as blood flow goes by, little pieces break off. So this great big huge cell just sits there, and its little plasma membrane up here in touch with the blood, it just comes by and it goes breaks off, breaks off, breaks off, breaks off, and we have a platelet. However, what's inside of that platelet? Very important. We're going to find that that huge cell, okay, like we're saying, it is complex, breaking off. We got all these structures. If you look up here, okay, in terms of platelets, okay, we end up having that pseudopod movement again. We get little granules that are present, an open canalicular system, almost like an open roadway inside the cell. They work off their mitochondria, and their goal is to go to areas that have been breached. Once again, whether open to the outside or open to the inside. They secrete vasoconstrictors, vessels, and it causes them to constrict. They help form what is called a platelet plug, the part in that video that had the web, okay? They secrete procoagulants, meaning support coagulation of the blood. So those are our clotting factors. Clotting factors are important. People can be deficient in clotting factors and have bleeding disorders. Hemophilias are the most prominent bleeding disorders out there. They initiate the formation once they have helped create the clot, and once healing is taking place, well, the clot can't stay there, okay? So they have the ability to also know when to dissolve at that place of healing. They have chemicals that they'll secrete, and those attract my neutrophils and monocytes. Did you notice that little white blood cell that went through the vessel, and then the phagocyte that was sitting there? That was a neutrophil and a monocyte, because they're going to help eat stuff, okay? Eat that stuff that was banging against the epidermis, the viruses and the bacteria. They can help internalize and destroy bacteria, but their goal, attract these cells to come in and take care of the problem. Then they have the ability to secrete growth factors. If I have had a breach and it has gone through the integumentary system to the vessels, I have to make sure that both repair. I've got to have the vessel repair. I've got to have the tissue repair. It can't just be one or the other. So